you've got to pull the plug on Bryan Harsin now. You had another game, and it's multiple reasons. It's not just one reason. Okay, number one, the head coach is responsible for everything. I had somebody say, oh, well, he can't help that they threw interceptions and made this mistake and made that mistake. Well, that's an amazing gig. So you just tell me that the head coach is not responsible for the way the players play on the field. Please don't ever say anything like that again to other people in public. You can say it to yourself, but it makes you look like an idiot. The head coach is responsible for everything, for the players that you bring in, for the game plan, for the functioning of everything around the program. That's why they make the money they do. This season and this game was lost during the offseason when you didn't go get guys on the offensive line that could help you. And I thought Auburn's offensive line played okay last night. They struggled. Jarquez, Hunter, and Tank had to make some great moves at the line of scrimmage to be able to create distance. But you don't bring in any offensive lineman that can help you. From a receiving standpoint, and I know Robbie Ashford threw for 337. LSU busted 4 coverages in the first half. I couldn't believe that. Looked like Ed Orgeron, old LSU, when it was going off a cliff, the way that they were blowing coverages in man, in zone, all type of stuff. Robbie Ashford, I think, played the game of his life last night. I really think he did. You scored 17 points in the first half. But what have we said on this show multiple times? Where does Bryan Harsin and Auburn's staff struggle? They can't make adjustments. You know how many points Auburn scored in the second half last night at home? 0. With the game on the line. You look at coaching decisions. You go for it on 4th and 10 from your own 50, down 4 to pin them back. Jaden Daniels threw for 80 yards last night. LSU was struggling to move the ball. And you go for it on 4th and 10, then you give LSU a chance, or excuse me, Auburn was up, I believe, and then you go for it and give LSU a chance to go down and score. The coaching decisions are one thing. The personnel's bad. The adjustments are bad. I don't think they know what they're looking at. I don't know what they go in there at halftime and say because there are no adjustments, guys. And at this point, Auburn has to get rid of Bryan Harsin. He can't do it. He can't do it. It's like I said last night. All lions aren't built the same in the jungle. We've seen it. I applaud him for trying. You can't get the players. You can't be a bad in-game coach and a bad recruiter.
That's the thing.
Now, that it'll never work. That's like trying to be a cross-country player and being fat and blind. Like you can't, it doesn't work like that. It's just the truth. At this point, Auburn needs to get rid of Bryan Harsin, name an interim, name Etheridge the interim, and then you move on and you go get an AD because no head coach worth his salt is going to come to Auburn not being hired by the athletic director. That's protection. It's a protection racket, like the mob. So that's the way I see it. I hate to be mean, but I really don't. It's the truth. You see the same movie over and over and over and over and over again. He can't do it. And now you're what, 3-2? And you got to go to the back half of this schedule? And I know Georgia's not playing great. They're going to beat you to death. You got to go to Ole Miss, to Mississippi State. I mean, at this point, you might as well just rip the Band-Aid off to me. It's a bunch of different things, Blaine.
You know, I feel like we get on here every Sunday and we talk about this as someone's getting to the point where we're just beating a dead horse. I feel like Auburn played the best game they could have played possibly yesterday. The fact that Auburn scored 17 points in the first half is beyond amazing against me versus the LSU defense that was coming in looking pretty good. After that Florida State game, you think LSU on both sides of the ball kind of got things sewed up. But Jaden Daniels goes back again. Doesn't look like he could go through one read without taking off. He's always escaping inside the pocket. But, I mean, you look at this Auburn team and what did they do well? Let's do what they did well. I feel like the D-line did a great job of knowing who's the quarterback and how to pass rush. Yeah. They really didn't get upfield too much, kind of stayed in their gaps, hung there, made Jaden Daniels escape the pockets to where they could at least get the tackle and did a good job there. But it goes back to this. What can you control as the head coach? You control recruiting, personnel, and in-game coaching. You got beat by a kid that you could have got from the portal. Robbie Ashford threw for 300 yards. That'll probably never happen again. Yeah, but it's only getting – the biggest thing to me was Brandon Council moving to center. All right, that helped Auburn's offensive line a lot. Center tackle, most important pieces. It helped them with Tank, Jarquez. They had to break tackles, but it looks somewhat cleaner. But it's not going to get better from here, guys. I'm sick of talking about it. You're going to Georgia next week, and you're going to get beat. Then I think you got Mississippi State. You're going to get beat. I agree with y'all. Just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Auburn needs to move on. It's not getting any better. It's only getting worse. So go ahead and rip it off, and let's make the change. Make the change.
Yeah,
Cohen, what
Jake,
do you
you,
think?
you made an important point. A collegiate head coach has two responsibilities: the on-field game planning, and then also the recruiting of players to come to your school in a way that an NFL coach a lot of times can say, "Hey, I'm not responsible for getting the guys here. I'm only responsible for the game planning." It's very difficult to have success if you only do one of those two. Very difficult. It's impossible to have success if you go 0 for 2. In a way that I know we're going to get to Texas A&M, but Jimbo Fisher, with the struggles that he's had on the field, can at least point and say, hey, I had the #1 recruiting class last year.
Mhm.
Hey, I went and sniped an LSU quarterback to come here. Hey, I've stacked a couple top 5 classes on each other. And that's bought him some time because, I do think we live in an era where we're too quick to pull the trigger on a lot of these head coaches, especially when you've had a couple not work out in the past and the buyout money is starting to add up. We're quick to pull the trigger on guys, but you cannot go 0 for 2 with not being able to make adjustments after halftime, which I think is the most telling thing in terms of a coaching staff is what do you do after halftime? They haven't had success there. And then 2, you haven't been able to get the guys in, which a year and a half there, 2 seasons now, especially with the transfer portal the way it is enough time when you see other universities around the country being able to do that.
Yeah, and Sean D says, you do got to give LSU's defense some credit there in the second half. And yes, and if this was a one-off thing, Sean, then yes, I would be getting on here and giving LSU massive amounts of credit for shutting down Auburn in the second half. Auburn hasn't scored more than 6 points in the second half against a Power 5 team, I believe, since Harsin's been in Auburn. So this is a pattern for Auburn. Not that LSU didn't make good adjustments, but let's not act like this isn't the same movie over and over and over again. They've done what basically every other team. Look at Missouri last week. Auburn scored 14 quick points. Once the script ended, they couldn't adjust. They couldn't do it. It's just the reality of it. We had a question, I think, from Holy Sal that said, can they afford to do it right now? Look, you're going to have to give them the buyout anyway. It's not like the Scott Frost situation where you got to wait till October 2nd, and then the buyout gets cut in half, and you don't have to play or pay the extra $7.5 million. You're going to have to pay him the buyout regardless. My thing is, you need to go ahead and get him out of the way because imagine this situation: you're trying to hire an AD, right? You go hire an AD that already has a lame duck coach there. That relationship's just going to cause problems. You need to get rid of Bryan Harsin. You need to name somebody the interim. And then you need to bring in the athletic director and you guys go get it. And people say, oh, why did they hire Bryan Harsin? He was the 4th choice. Auburn went to the club expecting to go home with a 9 and ended up going home with a 4 because that was the only one that would get in the car with them. A little creepy in the club, a little older than everybody else, kind of weirding everybody out. So again, we've talked about the candidates. We're going to talk about that this week. But Auburn, at some point, you got to make a change. I do want to tell LSU it's a nice win on the road. I don't care how bad the coaching staff is at Auburn. Whenever you can go into a place like Jordan-Hare, come back from 3 scores down.
Yep.
I got to give you credit. He said, Travis Elroy, can you justify firing on a 3-2 record, or do you need to wait until the record gets worse? I think, Travis, we already know kind of what it is. Like like Cone said, that was a great point. If recruiting was going great, I think Auburn's 12, 13 in the SEC in recruiting, which is absolutely disgusting. If recruiting was going well, if he did a good job of adjusting in the game and they were just losing games because they had a bunch of young talent that wasn't old enough yet to win these games or understand how to win these games, that's one thing. Auburn is bad in every area. They're bad in recruiting. They're bad on the field. They're bad scheming up and adjusting. The game plan was good. The script was good. But let's not act like Robbie Ashford didn't run, like it was a bunch of truly run plays that Auburn hit for touchdowns. The first touchdown that they hit, Robbie Ashford ran around. It was a broken down play, and LSU lost the Auburn receiver in coverage because they got their eyes on the quarterback. They thought Ashford was going to run. So that play wasn't drawn up beautifully to work. He went through one read. It wasn't there. He escaped through the pocket, and it was a broken down play. So I think all the variables have added up, and you got to let him go. But
I'm glad Travis asked that question because that's what I asked you guys this week. I said, what if Auburn figures out a way to beat LSU at home? He's 4-1. You can't fire the guy. I don't care that they almost lost to Missouri, right? I don't care how much they've struggled. But Jake, even at the beginning of the season, you said time and time again, Auburn's going to figure out a way to start 5-0, beat Penn State at home, find a way against LSU. And then the back half of that schedule is so brutal that that combined with the lack of success in the portal and in recruiting is what will make Bryan Harsin have to win that 7th game or maybe that 8th game in a bowl game to be able to keep his job. Well, even now through the first 5, it's 3-2, and it really gets ugly now.
Oh, you're cooked. You're cooked. Now, I mean, it was basically like you have to start 5-0 or 4-1 to be able to have a chance. Now that it's 3-2, now that's and I'm going to be honest with you, I think Tua's super legit concussion protocol. That's an interesting handle there. Says with Missouri's performance, is Auburn the worst team in the SEC outside of Vanderbilt? I think Auburn's the worst team. I think Auburn's the worst. I know you beat Missouri at home. I know, but overall, if you played 10 times in a neutral site, I think Missouri wins 6 of those.
Well, I'm trying to find. I had them winning 2 SEC games. I'm looking at their schedule right now. I'm trying to find that second win.
Go through it, and then we'll move on.
You go to Georgia next weekend. You go to Ole Miss the weekend after. You got Arkansas at home. Then you go to Mississippi State. You got A&M at home, Western Kentucky at home. Then you go to Bama. So that second win, I can't find. I mean, look, Arkansas as beat up as they are. Could you somehow possibly find a way? I think they're going to struggle to do that.
They'll find one of them.
Western Kentucky's not a bad team either. Like, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, they're not a bad team. They can come in here and put up points.
If you like that content, go ahead and subscribe because we're going to be balling every day on Crane & Company. Hit that like button while you're at it and go ahead and smash it like Derrick Henry on an ISO run.